However, a lot of the things you have to do yourself, especially when you're in the development world, and I'm in the business intelligence world. So you get to, a friend of mine from Air Canada classified it beautifully. He said you're an application DBA, all right? And that in many ways is true because I'm a party of one. So I'm controlling all the DBA, the databases that are there, the production databases, etc., and doing the development. And I'm actually doing a lot of development within the business intelligence world. Now, where are we going, and what does this have to do with the price of rice in China? Very, very simple. I worked for a corporation up in Vermont about 4 or 5 months ago for about 2 years, entitled My Web Grocer. And it's a great firm. I'm not knocking it. The only thing is that I learned a hell of a lot while I was there. And that was not what not to do. Okay? And a lot of the examples, I had prepared this presentation, I had done it a couple of years back. And I said to myself when I left My Web Grocer, I said to myself, you know what? I should incorporate a lot of the examples that I've got, that I picked up over time, and put them in here as what not to do so that everybody can benefit from it. Not knocking them, but basically speaking, we are the creators of our own problems is the point where I'm trying to go to. Okay? I'll prove my point before I even start, and then you'll see how that'll naturally follow through. Think about it. You were asked to produce a XYZ. And off you go and you produce an XYZ and the database analysts help you with it and you put it up. And then all of a sudden somebody in his infinite wisdom comes up with the idea, hey, that's not really what I wanted. So you go back to your code, and what you do is you make little fixes to your code because you don't want to start the development cycle over again, correct? Mm-hmm. How many people don't do it that way? They start right from go. Good. Because I would say you're lying. Because as far as I'm concerned, I just want to get the damn thing up and running. Okay, right? Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Okay. But the problem is we're our own worst enemies. Because we design and we properly design these things for the situation and for the specs that we get. I went for an interview for my job that I'm in right now. They actually called me up and they said, would you like to come and work for me? And they made it, they made me an offer. And I said to them right at the interview, and God is my witness, I got to go to church tomorrow. I said to them, I do things by spec. If I ain't got a spec, I don't do the development. And if this is a problem to you, I'm not your man. Okay? I've just been caught and burnt too many times without a set of specs. Because when somebody comes back to me and says, that's not what I want, I say, whoa, wait a minute, hang on a bit. And I go through on the paper and I say, we decided, the royal we decided that this is the case and this is what we want. Now, this is the way we really should be doing it. Now, obviously, we don't always land up doing this over and over in the iterative process, but it does cut down on a lot of crap. Okay? Now, my accent in this next hour is going to be on showing you a lot of problematic areas. And I've thrown in a little tidbit at the end of something that I developed recently to judge runtimes. And to see when your runtimes on your jobs are running late or whatever it may be, to give you a norm and an average and stuff like that. You like it? It's yours. I got the code here. You can go and take it away and play with it. It's something that I knocked together in about an hour and a half. Okay. My website is infogoldusa.com. I'll have the QR card up at the end. Anybody wants to go and have a look at it, I'll put the code up there. By the way, the code, the presentation, the databases, and everything are on the SQL Saturday 235 site. Go download everything that you got here. Okay. I gave you the spiel about it. What we do. Okay? Right. This presentation, before we start, is not rocket science. I'm not a DBA. I don't claim to be a DBA. The only thing I need to do is I need to get stuff done, and I need to do it myself. Okay? And you know what the best manual is for the DBA? The application DBA? Google. If I want to find something, I'll find it on Google. Who says I won't find it on Google? Good. All right? Because I believe that if this error occurred, somebody else found it too. The whole of SQL Server is an error. All right. What this presentation does is it deals with day-to-day problems, and I'm going to show you in this presentation the problems, and not only leave you with the problems, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a couple of ways that I've worked around in getting some metrics to be able to detect this thing on Monday morning without having to pull my hair out. And I haven't got very much left, and it's all gray. Right. Hindsight is 20/20. We all know that. In other words, yes, we should have figured that one out a long time ago, and it should have been right in the first place. Duh. Okay. But the point is, and it goes back to what I said to you at the beginning there, we have to face evolving challenges to our architecture, which is going to affect our actual performance. When the database was developed, and I'm going to show you the data warehouse here, it doesn't make a difference what it is at this particular point, it was developed for a different type of audience. Then what they tried to do while I was there was change the thing and try and make things all fancy and stuff like that to make things work. How did they do it? I'm just going to throw you a tidbit. Somebody in his infinite wisdom decided that the key should be, it shouldn't be an integer, the key should be a GUID. Okay? Now that's great if you're dealing with online transaction processing. What do you think about it from an analytical point in reporting? GUIDs. Huh?
It's a nightmare sometimes doing this work.
Yeah, why is it a nightmare?
It's not easy when it is sometimes.
Can't index it.
Yeah, okay, that's fine, but you're getting there, you're getting there. You're getting there, come on, you're getting there.
I mean, if you have to
What has it got to do with the primary key and basically as far as sorting goes and recall? I'm giving it to you. Because it's a random, the GUID is a randomly generated number. There's no ordering of the records. So what is it obviously doing? A scan.
the whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm not talking about if you're looking at it from an OLAP, online transaction processing type of thing. I'm talking about from OLAP, from reporting. Okay? And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm not going to ask you to believe me. I'm going to show you some times. And not times that I put in little PowerPoint things. I'm going to show you screen dumps of PowerPoint to extract 15 months worth of data, 7 hours and 41 minutes. 7 hours off 1 trillion records. Okay? That's cool. Right. DMVs, they're my favorite brains. How many people work with DMVs? Great. The practical example I'm going to give you to take home with you is a DMV, a couple of DMVs that I threw together. I resorted to this, and I'll be honest with you, I've been in the business for a while, but I've never really had a look at those things until about maybe 2 or 3 years ago, because they're really cool. I mean, it's just out of necessity that I had to go and have a look at them. Come on in. No problem, have a seat. Okay. Right, we're going to have a look at a couple of my favorite ones. Okay. The challenges during development and the release, etc., with the particular stuff that I was looking at, which was an online grocery system. My web grocer, basically speaking, sells a lot of groceries and can host people like Food Town, ShopRite. People know ShopRite, Price Right. Okay, their online grocery shopping goes through them. Now you got to remember one thing when you're dealing with the grocery business. What you have is you have a lot of people that have got grocery lists. And the groceries start at grocery, and then they go down to breakfast, dinner, supper type of thing, and then they go down to cereal for breakfast, and then from breakfast down to, cereal, hot cereal, cold cereal, whatever it may be, oatmeal, cornmeal, whatever it may be. So you're really dealing with a hierarchy which is not all that conducive to a relational database table. So that is a problem in itself, but I don't want to go there. Right? Changes. We always had changes that had to be made on the database structure. Okay? Now the DBAs, I ask this question to you as a rhetoric question. You know yourself that when the last thing you want to do is go and change a database structure once it's set. Why? Efficiency, indexes, etc. Fair statement? Okay? So, it leads to the natural thing. All right, let's go through together a warehouse. Why are you throwing together a warehouse?
Do you know enough the data?
Yes, not only that, but okay, here's another thing too. I don't want to go down this road, but I'll throw this out to you. We had 15 different flippin' spellings of Kellogg's. We had Kellogg's with 2 G's, Kellogg's with 2 GS's, with 2 G's and an S. Well, some Kellogg's cornflakes had apostrophes. Okay, some didn't have apostrophes. Now for those people that are developers, where could that have a problem in OLAP? I'll give you a hint. Cubes. Aggregations. Okay? So data, does anybody here have clean data? I'm waiting for the first liar to show his hands. Okay, anyhow, there were a lot of changes that went on in the database structure, and what happened was they decided they were going to make a warehouse. So they made their infinite wisdom. We put together a spreadsheet showing all the various different things we're going to have. And we went together and put together the database warehouse. But they tried to get too clever. Now, how many people have heard of Michael Jackson, who is not the singer? Only the older people will remember him. You heard of Michael Jackson? Yeah. Michael Jackson was a guy that was running around the early 70s. Now, listen to what he proposed in the early 70s. Get your table structure similar to the type of reports that you want to do. That way your data will come out faster. Okay? Interesting that back in the 70s, they were thinking along these lines. Okay? And he proposed that particular thing. And now we come up with data warehouses and stuff like that. The problem with a lot of the stuff is that the design, you can denormalize the tables as much as you want until the cows come home on their own. Okay? And you can never be efficient, especially when you have some tables, like I did when I was working at State Street, that have got something like 161 fields in the table. Okay? Why? Because nobody wanted to change the database structure. We need another field, so go and put another field in the table. Now, the thing that a lot of people forget about is that when you're looking at a table and you're pulling the data out, and the DBAs can back me up, I'm not a DBA, it may look as if you're going row to row, but the SQL server is going traversing the line of bits and bytes type of thing to reach the end of record, to the whole thing. It's going to scan the whole darn record. How do I know that? Because in their infinite wisdom, they put in XML into the thing. Now, if you've got XML in there, can you imagine how long it takes to go and pull data, or to at least parse the data if you're going to do a table scan? Okay? So, this goes back really to the title that I'm saying that I put in my presentation.
Or varchar max.
Yes, varchar max. So that's our favorite. Okay.
That is my favorite.
Tell me about it. Hey, sorry, I'm a DBA. But more importantly, yeah, you're going to see what we learned on this particular thing. Okay? Right. I have a couple of data management views that are my particular favorite here. When I started looking at the thing and trying to figure out what the problems were, I wanted to go and have a look at a couple of total elapsed times on various different queries, okay? And the number of times at which those queries were hit. And here's one little query that I put away. By the way, all these little queries that I'm going to show you today, they're all packed, they're on the website now. You can go drag them down and have a look at them afterwards and go knock me down, okay? But this particular query gives me the total elapsed time of the queries that we've been running, etc., and the number of times those queries were hit. All right, so if we go and have a look at that particular query right now, I apologize, my fault, I didn't bring up SQL Server. Oh, now how come this is not showing? Huh? Okay, sorry. Right. This is a particular query that I've got, that I put together, that we're going to monitor. What this is it's got a table function in it. It's what we called, I prepared a couple of these things back at the, when I was working at State Street. I'll be doing a presentation on data access layers like this during September online with the Oracle SQL Server virtual chapter. So if you're interested, come and see me afterwards. I'll give you more details. What it basically speaking does is prevent people from going and executing wild queries all over the place. What they do is we develop the queries for them, tune them, etc. And what they can do is they use a query and pass parameters through. They set the arguments, whatever it may be, pass it through, and that way we know that the things are properly functioning. Okay? Right. Now, if I execute this particular query, I'm just going to execute it a couple of times to give you a couple of examples. Basically speaking, what it does is pull back a pile of data. Now, I'm going to open up the first query. And here's the query about the total elapsed time. Right? Now, what I did was, in this particular case, is I asked for all the statements where the thing contained ACID, because you're going to have all sorts of stuff running on your server. Asset being an asset ID, which is a financial term. All right? But you can see from this particular query that
Max is up there.
sorry.
The max allowed. The max allowed.
Yeah, max elapsed time and the minimum elapsed time in milliseconds.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get a lot of very valuable information off that particular query. Okay? You can take it out anything. I've just taken a couple of terms and put them in there. This is something that particularly interested me. Okay? Right. Any questions, please let me know. Now, you've seen only a couple of little notations that I had when I showed it to you. In this particular case in time, this comes off stuff that I was doing at My Web Grocer. There's a lot of queries there, but you can see some of those queries ran a long time. For instance, this query over here, number 14, you can see the amount of time, the total elapsed time that ran. Okay? So they had a lot of efficiency problems there, and this is where I'm going. Okay? Now, in some of the cases, what you'll see that you're able to get the query plan. And to me, this query plan is actually quite a good thing to have. Now, if I can get this thing to work, lost some belief. You'll see that in my particular case, I was able to pull the query plan. And if I open up the query plan, you can see that I've got the actual path, and I can determine the nature of the query and what actually ran. Okay? And see whether or not I'm doing table scans, etc. And the beauty of this thing is, obviously, you know now that you can save these plans to a flat file. Anybody not know that you can save these plans to a flat file or to a SQL plan file? Everybody knows that? Great. Because I didn't know it until about last year when I tried to save the things, because you used to be able to save them and then you couldn't. All right. Going back. There was the plan used in the My Web Grocer example, all right? And they're cool. Okay, moving on. Sorry, got a bit waylaid there. The DMVs are really cool and very, very easy to use, all right? I'm not telling you anything you don't know. I brought this in because I do it to various different audiences, and a lot of them are VAs. Right. The one thing that I had here is I found, put together, the problem that I had, sorry, losing track. The problem that I had myself when it came to learning about these DMVs was, basically speaking, where they are, what they do, and when, how do you get hold of what's available? Because this is always a challenge. They say there's a DMV, that this and that type of thing. And nobody goes just before breakfast and has a look and say, I think I'll learn a new DMV this morning. If you think about it, when do you use the DMVs is when you need them. And you remember them and then you use them again. In this particular case, here's a small query that I put together to show you where you can get the DMVs, etc. All right? And whether you're looking for things that are involved with views or table functions or tables or inline functions, etc. And I got stopped actually one day by somebody. And the bottom here, this portion that I put in at the bottom, was basically somebody asked me what a TF is and an IF is. These are not necessarily things that are well known, but it gives you an idea of what can be done. Questions? Okay, it gets more interesting as we go on. All right, I just also dropped that from the Microsoft site. It gives you an idea of what kind of things you can go and have a look at. Now, when I went and had a look and pulled the data out from My Web Grocer, you can see these are some of the threads, etc., that got pulled out in the thing. They're not very, very interesting. I was more interested in my own queries. All right? The point that I'm trying to say here is, what has it done? It gives you the create date, whatever date you may have created it, etc., and what type of object it was done on, whether it was an inline table or a value function, table value function, or whatever it may be. All right, where am I going with this? Sorry? No problem. Okay, I think where am I going with this? You have to be able to ascertain what is causing your problem. You may have clash plan. How many people know what parameter sniffing is? How many people do not? Okay. parameter sniffing, this is great for parameter sniffing, I think you'll agree. When you go and you create, this got me when I first started. Think of it this way, you go, just bear with me those that know what it is. You go to create a stored procedure. And you go and test the stored procedure. Normally if you do it like me, you do it as a query. And the query becomes a stored procedure. You know, put a header in, a thing like that. That's great. You only have one little problem with that. You'll go and you'll create your stored procedure and you run your stored procedure, and the first test you do after your stored procedure is the one that with the parameters that you've run 50 million times to see if it works. And it works. And it's fast. It's great. Now you go and change your parameters slightly. And the thing is lazy. It is slow. Okay. The problem is when you create your stored procedure, what happens is that the parameters are used as part of the optimization path. The arguments that you put into those parameters are used in optimizing it. Therefore, if you go and throw something in from left field, it's no longer an efficient query.
Like a null.
Yeah. Oh, nulls are over.
They're the worst.
Okay. But they're the worst. But besides for the nulls, okay, I mean, I could have done it on Kellogg's Corn Flakes. But if I go and put in Colgate toothpaste, it does affect it. Okay? And it's very difficult to work around. Anybody know a workaround?
Set the parameters equal to a variable in the stored procedure.
Yeah. Okay, and that's the way to do it.
Or you can use optimize for?
Yes, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. The
Can you tell it which parameter, what values to use during the company?
Yeah. There's an excellent article. I'll tell you what, I call it toilet reading. You know, it's this long. That's it. An article, if you're interested in that, I'll pass just come see me afterwards and I'll give you the link to it. This gentleman had it right. What you do is you take your input and you put it into local variables within your actual query. Okay, and then run your query. And it gets rid of all your latency problems. It's actually quite cool. Very simple.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. Anyhow, here's a particular thing that gives you the various different work time, and more important now, the stuff that I was interested in, besides for the query plan, was basically speaking, having a look at the elapsed time, and more important than that, the amount of I/O. All right? So this is the type of thing that you'll get there, various different logical reads, etc., that can help you. In this particular case, I was looking at a lot of fact activity. This table here, I'll show you some data off that, and that was a nightmare. The point is, this can help you try and find out where your weakness is on your development, okay? And especially if you haven't, for us guys who aren't DBA experts, okay? And more along the development lines, we tell you sometimes it's very, very hard to move on, okay? Once again, here's a couple of show plans that you can go and have a look at, etc. All right? Right. You take a nested next. Okay, did I miss a slide here? Right, I'm sorry. Okay. Now, when you get to the field of nested stored procedures, okay, or nested queries, how many people do like I do, rather than using a CTE, we're old school, we use nested queries?
Sometimes. I mean, sometimes. Sure.
Sometimes, yeah. Okay, no, I know I'm a bad boy. I should be using CTEs. I use CTEs when I have to, and especially when they're working with tables. But you know, when you're doing a lot of queries, a lot of times it's easier to do, especially if you're going to do case logic. It's a lot easier to do it in a subquery and at least understand what you're doing. It's more, you know, understanding. I'm thick, okay? The problem is that you create more problems for yourself, okay? Where are you creating problems? In performance, all right? Now, there are only a couple DMVs that can help me understand where the latency is in the query, okay? And especially trying to find the point at which the latency is occurring. Because if you use a lot of the DMVs, they don't necessarily give you that particular information, okay? You find out, for instance, that you got it slow, okay? You have to discover which single query in your thing is causing the issues, and that's a major problem. Okay? And few DMVs, as I said a couple of seconds ago, will let you know that. All right? Right. Here are two really cool DMVs. You'll have the slides, so there's no point in marking it down. All right? It gives you a big blurb there. In red is the important thing. It contains even an offset where you can, which can lead you to the exact point where your query is slow. All right? Now, do you know where the biggest culprit is in queries? When you're doing aggregations. Okay. How many people do not do aggregations in their queries? Okay. I'll tell you about some queries that I had. We had a client who shall remain nameless, but they do ratings, and they're in Chicago. I'm not saying. Now they decided in their infinite wisdom that what they wanted was they wanted all their groceries, but they wanted to have them aggregated. I'll keep it very simple, weekly. So there are 14 weeks. In other words, present week plus 13 arrear, because they work on a 445. Everybody know what a 445 quarter is? Okay? They want them half yearly. They want them calendar year and financial year. Okay? And they wanted the sum of the groceries, and we're dealing with something like about trillion records, American trillion records, or milliard records in overseas.
This is in their data warehouse, correct?
Sorry?
This is in their data warehouse, correct?
Yeah, this is the data warehouse that we were providing for them, so that it had to be aggregated. Now, what is the problem? Here's the quiz. Here's the quiz. You've got this on a reporting server. What happens to your query on a reporting server if it runs after 5 minutes worth of time? Yeah, right. That's the big thing, yeah. And you can set it. I've read about the setting of the thing. It doesn't work.
It doesn't
No,
work.
no,
Yes,
I mean,
true. It doesn't work.
I had a question regarding the aggregation.
Yeah.
They're trying to do this stuff on the fly rather than having it pre-processed.
Hang on, you're coming to where I am. You're right. You're right. That's what I said. You're the man. That's what I said. Yeah.
It's a plant.
Yeah.
So what's the use of the data warehouse?
Pre-aggregated. That's what I did. I said, this is crazy. I ran it Sunday. The job ran for 16 hours. Okay, but hang on. No, I'm aggregating a week.
Yeah,
14
all
one-week
the-
periods,
all
do you
the-
understand? And a quarter, and a year, and a this, and a that, type of thing. Okay, yeah. The problem is, as you said, and I've read all the articles too, it'll time out. And it's the one weakness with the product. If you're ever trying to get anything off a reporting service server, it times out after 5 minutes. There's nothing you can do. And I brought it up to Microsoft, and it is a problem. Okay?
Are you able to get the column header on every page of the report?
No. No. But it's aggregated. In our particular case, it was a special case. Everything was aggregated up to a particular level where I could. But you're right. No, you can't. Okay? That's a problem. You want to do that, you've got to try Information Builder's Web Focus. That's a great product. Okay? As a reporting tool. All right? I used to work with that stuff, and that'll give you the pages. If you're interested, I'll put you in touch with the people.
Sure.
Okay. All joking aside, though, that's a problem. And that's why I went the aggregation route. Okay? Now, when they went to go and run the queries, it took all of 15 seconds to get the thing back.
That's the
Because
difference.
everything was pre-aggregated. Yeah. Okay?
How long did it take to run the aggregation?
As I said, 16 hours. I started at 1 o'clock in the 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday, and it ran through to Monday morning.
So each week it took about that time?
Yeah, about that length of time. Yeah, fortunately it was a month-only process, sorry. But it doesn't make a difference. It could have been a weekly
Yeah,
process
it's
as well.
okay.
Yeah. You can't do that daily. And there was no hit on the server. By the way, there's nobody on the server over the weekend.
So it's
So I was
perfect to
lucky.
work
I was
on,
just
yeah.
lucky.
Sure.
Okay? But that is a major problem. And we created itself, getting back to the title of the presentation, why are they running so slowly? Because there had to be a better method. Now,
Hello to you.
yeah, I was waiting. Thank you so very much. If I had books, I'd be giving them out. You're quite right.
I am not lucky.
You're right. You're right.
You can send me book next time.
Okay. I met him before and I asked him, I cued him. I said to him, this is the question you asked. All right. Okay. Yes, you're right. We had a cube. And if we were drilling down in the cube, we would have got it. And the cube only took a grand total of 45 minutes to process.
Yeah.
Okay? Which is right. However, I challenge you to this. This is the problem. We started off, and it goes back to what I said, we started off doing this thing with a view of producing only a cube. And the cube would give us everything we wanted. However, I said to you that the thing was a structure of a hierarchy, which is great because we can do hierarchies in cubes, no problem. Right? However, what they wanted to do is they wanted to use parameters to be passed to the thing. Oh, now we have to think very carefully. And they wanted to see the cornflakes on the same page as the Kellogg's, the Colgate Palmolive toothpaste, all in one thing. Now the problem is, even if you're going to, now wait a minute, hang on, you could probably do that if you did a lot of MDX queries.
Yeah.
But it wasn't always that. They may not want Kellogg's
change.
cornflakes. They may want Fruit Loops, or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Okay, soap, Lux soap,
Case out for each one.
Colgate Palmolive soap, or whatever it may be, and Lifebuoy. I don't care, whatever it is. Then you can't do it. It's not practical.
What do you mean, reports of the cube, it will be not practical, parameterized
No.
reports of the cube?
Look, it's okay if you're looking at it from a report point of view, but if you have things going down at various different hierarchies, levels, we went down 7 levels, and you're looking for daily sales. Now what happens is you can get down and you can find your Lifebuoy soap, but that's 5 screens down. And on top is the Kellogg's cornflakes, whatever it may be. So it's backwards, forwards, and they didn't want it. What they wanted is they wanted one report with screen down. I want to be able to choose the product and the manufacturer.
It essentially generate the cube on the fly. Right? Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And you can't do that. And I'll be able to choose it.
Cascading parameters would probably be able to do that.
Tell you what.
Never mind, it's
Yeah, no. With the parameters, it worked. Hang on. It worked on aggregated data because don't forget one thing, all the processing time that I had done was aggregated down 7 columns.
Okay.
So in other words, they just basically speak, everything had been aggregated all the way up the chain. Okay? So, but that's something different.
So you don't have detailed cube, you have aggregation cube.
Look, we had 2 things. We had the cube. For those people, certain reports ran off a cube. There were canned reports for everybody. Everybody had canned reports, but there were some reports. The cube worked well as far as canned reports go. In other words, we set the cubes, we wrote the reports, MDX, the whole 9 yards type of thing, and we put it in. That was it. They gave us the requirements of what they wanted. Then they came up with a thing and said, this is great, this is what we want. Now what we want, how many people have heard that? Now what we want, okay, is we want to do this. Now, we sat down and said, can you do it with a cube? The answer is yes, you can do it with a cube. Okay. The problem is not in the format that they wanted. They wanted to be more flexible, all right? And they wanted to, basically speaking, they didn't want to necessarily have to choose a manufacturer who produces a product. They wanted to be able to look at all the products from Post and from Kellogg's. Okay, General Mills and Kellogg's on the same page. And they wanted to have a little bit of toothpaste in that and a partridge in a pear tree. Okay? Now that you can't do easily with a cube.
That's why it took 16 hours to process.
Bingo!
Yeah.
Okay? Anyhow, I'm deviating. I apologize. But you see the problems that we lead ourselves into. That's where I'm going. Okay. Right. Here's another couple of queries, that the thing, various different things. I'm not going to bore you with it. All right? Just basically tells me how things were going, how things were running, what objects are issuing problems, etc. All right? And there's my CPU usage. What happened there? Ah! Okay. Various different CPU. All right. Next. Okay. Now, remember I told you I want to just move on to indices. I think it's more. This is far more interesting. Hey, when I went to go and run some of those queries, to go and pull out data from July, I think it is, where's the time period? 0112, there it is. From April the 1st, 2012 through to July 1st, 2012. Okay, on that query, and it was not rocket science query. Okay, right. I have to tell you one thing here. In their infinite wisdom, I'm harping on the same word. What they did was this. They have a customer ID. They have a customer key, which is a business key. Customer ID is the business key, and the customer key, which is the integer. But in order to get one system to talk to the other, they have a bridge table. Everybody know what a bridging table is? Okay, so I'm not talking to you. The one hand hooks up to a key. The middle key in the bridging table is a GUID. The key on the right hand side to the table that I was looking for the data for a shopping store, big chain in the Midwest, was a GUID. So there was a numeric, an integer key, which is great, to a GUID. Now there was no other way of linking the tables. Trust me for that, just for the sake of argument, that there's no other way. There's one table that's a bridging table that I could get, that I managed to put together. It took me 3 days to put together, but I got it and put it together. And it's a GUID. Now the GUIDs are not in numeric order, because you can't put a GUID in, by definition. Okay? This thing for 3 months took me 7 hours, 21 minutes, and 40 seconds to run. Never completed. Okay? We create our own problems. Now,
how many records were there?
Approximately 950 million. Okay?
Yeah.
Partition.
Partition too.
Partition, because that's the next question that comes up.
Yeah.
Now, partition. Okay? And you can see the type of joins that we're doing there with the date key. In this particular case, I pulled it out between that and the 15th, okay? All right, that was out of the normal data warehouse, all right? And what I landed up doing is I landed up putting on a couple of indices on that thing to improve it, all right? And what we did was we created a super warehouse which everything properly indexed. Okay, so we're living with the sins of our forefathers, but we fixed it up. Now, the similar type of query where I ran it here gives you an idea of the various different sales for a customer ID, basket ID, whatever it may be. And the information is not all that important, all right? I'm looking for the time. Just give me a second here. A couple of minutes. This is not really important, okay? I don't know where that thing is gone, but this thing here, query ran in 1 minute and 43 seconds.
What changes did you make?
Okay. I put an index on all 3 non-clustered indexes, or indices to be correct, on both sides and on the GUID. It didn't do all that much on the GUID, but hey,
Yeah.
the more the merrier. Not really the merrier. Not more the merrier.
And that MASH table that you spoke of with the customer ID and the GUID.
Yeah.
Was the customer ID defined as the clustered key? Like that had to have been.
The problem is you can't really. It will be defined as a key.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not really a key because the problem is you can't define it as a primary key because it's not. You can't. You could call it a primary key, but you're still going to get a table scan. You're not going to get a seek. Anybody deny that?
No.
DBAs around here, GUID, because everything is randomly generated. You're not going to get your data stored with the clustering key.
Yeah.
Or in a pattern that you can actually B-tree down to the thing. That's why I always recommend putting a key in as an integer and bugger the GUID. Okay?
And I'm sure this wasn't a problem until the table grew out to 950 million. I mean,
That's
it's
it.
just a scale issue.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, we're the victims of our own victims. Okay? Now, there's all sorts of things that we can use to sort of make things better. One is system stored procedures that we've looked at. All right? A couple of them, once we started looking at this thing, getting back to what you said, we tried to look for things that we should have indexes on. All right? All right? We use these particular queries that out of the system stored procedures, the DMVs, all right? And we just tried to look at fields so that we could put indices on. But the problem is, how many people have used these queries? Right. What's the major problem with the queries? Using them.
You only look at the current whatever workload is on it since the start.
You're almost there. Come on, that's one thing. But update
Stats.
what? That's right. Yeah, right. Good. The problem is that these things are based on your current statistics. How many people faithfully update their statistics every month, every week? Okay, yeah, there probably are. I'll believe you. Okay, millions wouldn't, but I'll believe you. All right. I know you have to, but a lot of people tend to forget that, and, you know, that leads to problems in the long run. I think DBAs will agree with me on that, that the stats have to be updated regularly, okay? And you can get faulty information based upon that. Okay, so that is a problem. All right, and missing index groups, etc., that can be used as well to help you out. All right. It basically returns a lot of information about what indices are missing or what it thinks is missing, and you got to take this with a grain of salt, right? Okay, it may not lead you to the best down the best road. This particular one is a good one to use. I use this all the time. All right, and the query basically uses the various statistics stored that you got regarding the data access patterns. Once again, you got to watch out for parameter sniffing. Okay, to calculate the best advantages of a certain index. All right. So if you're going to put that into a particular query, and I'm supposed to be doing a presentation, I think, at this particular point in time. It doesn't show very nicely on the screen. That's why I'm missing my cue. All right. So if I go in and I open up a file and I run this, but really what I want to do is I want to update my statistics. Well, I'll run it this way. No, it doesn't. I don't have enough information on here. But if you have information on here, I run a couple of queries. Let's see if I run a query here. You should be able to get an idea on this. Okay, I haven't got enough information, but if you're working in a proper system that's got a lot of queries on there, you'll be able to get some information out of it. Going back to the presentation, I'll show you. This is what I ran at my web browsers. The server's used a hell of a lot. This is based up on my laptop server, and you're not going to pull anything out of that because I haven't got enough queries to get some stats on it. But it gives you a rough idea of what to do, etc., and gives you an idea of where you possibly could get some help with indices. I'm not telling you the DBA is anything they don't know. All right? Interrogating your indices, you can find out a lot of very valuable information in there. All right? They return the various different counts. I'm not telling you anything that you know. And every individual seek and scan and update. That is cool. This is what I like to look for as a admin DBA or as a developer. Okay? And to make sure that things are being done by an index seek as opposed to a table scan.
Just one thing out of that, when you're looking at that stuff, it helps just to be aware of what queries are actually being posted.
Yes, yes.
Because it usually comes down to a correlation between what the heavy queries are and what index.
Yes, exactly. Absolutely, no, a very, very valid point. You've got to be very careful and take everything that you see with a grain of salt. Hence, what I came to do is I came to put in a lot of predicates in there to try and look, to try and keep it neutral, and yet to be able to pull what I need to give me some idea of where I'm going. Okay? A couple more queries there. You can get various different indices. And the thing that I like here is it tells you also whether or not your index, what index it's using, and whether or not it's a clustered index or it's using the heap. Okay? Now, here's where I want to go. I bored you with that crap because you know it. All right? I got to a point where I was running these queries and I didn't know what, as far as a day, week-to-week basis, I didn't want to have to run all these queries. So being the developer that I am right now, I said to myself, how could I come in on Monday morning and find out that everything is peachy dandy without having to run all those queries? In other words, have a dashboard that runs the system stuff and pulls the data back. And this is what I want to show you, which is really cool. So if you bear with me, I think it was worth the wait. Okay? We're jumping into SSRS land. I put together a dashboard like that. Okay? Now, it's deliberately put that way. If you'll notice the left-hand side, second column, and the second row down, you can see a little bit of red. Can everybody see that red?
Yes.
Little bit of red at the right of the box. Okay, here's what I did. Each of these boxes is the equivalent of a text box. There is a query behind each of the boxes that is run. It is a DMV. Now, if there are no issues in the query, it runs a stored procedure. Please ask if you have any problems. By the way, if you want the code, I'll give it to you. I got no problem. All right? What it does is it runs a stored procedure, and based upon the return set of the result set, will determine whether or not there's an issue or not. Logic that I've set. If there is no issue, the green visibility on the green box is set to true, and the red box, which is superimposed on it, is set to false. I'm sorry, am I on your way? Okay. Therefore, this is, by the way, this is in design view. Therefore, I can control it, and if I do need a yellow view, I can have a yellow view. So that when I open this up on a Monday morning, I can see the whole story. There's it, in fact, that's been running. So I've got issues with the batch packet error log, I've got with the daily stats, and I've got issues with the fact daily sales check. Now, isn't this idea, the concept, a great idea to be able to use to see a whole pot of things? Forget about what I'm looking at, what you're looking at. I think it's worth having a look at to see what it is. Now, here, just going, how many people are familiar with SSRS? A little bit. Okay. Within here, you can basically speaking, work with your shown parameters, etc. And you can see I've used a little bit of VB script in there to control the visibility. Now, what happens is, when it goes red, it means that there's an issue. Right? You have to be able to show the issue to the reader. Therefore, I'm setting the action. On the green box, on the red box, I've got an action. And that action means that when he hits the red box, it'll bring up the report. So you can have a look at it. But if you click on the green box, there's nothing. Unless, for some reason, you want to show the report on the green box. One has got an action set, which drives the report, and the other one doesn't. Okay? The only thing that you have to be aware of is that it'll generate a warning when you go and push it to the server that you've got boxes overlapping. Okay? But it doesn't mean a thing. It's just a warning that everything is overlapping. But you really want it overlapping. Otherwise, it don't look good. Okay? All right? There you can see the green and red split. And you can see that it controls the what I'm working on there is based upon an expression. You can see that if the value is green, there's in here it's a green, yellow, and red type of thing. Right? Depending upon whatever value is coming back from the thing, that box will be shown as visible. So that's how I control it. Right? Now the reports, as I said, that will need to show a physical report. What you want is you want the action to take place, and you call the stored procedure to pull the result set that you want to show. So far, so good? Here's one that I ran to go and create a idea of how many megabytes I've got left on the disk. I don't have to go check it anymore. I got a graphic representation.
That's pretty good.
Want the code? Come see me. Right? All my disks. Things I want to do Monday morning. Let's have a cup of coffee and not work. Okay? There's the query. Well, the only unfortunate part is you got to set on. Oh man, help me out. DBAs. You got to turn on the XP, the extended extended source
in order to query the operating system.
But that's it. Works like a bomb. Okay. And you can have a nice little table like that on all your drives. Work with the color coding on the thing. So that's the type of thing I like to see. All right? Queries with aggregation. Remember I told you a couple of minutes ago, I told you basically speaking that you got certain things tend to take up time. Here's a typical example getting back to what they wanted to see. You got to sum the amount of units, sum the amount of dollars, etc. into whatever it may be and pulling this type of thing. This takes a lot of time. Okay? This one took 3 hours and 41 minutes to complete. It's crazy. Aggregation. SSIS is an answer. In other words, if you're loading your tables, you know, when I started pre-aggregating this stuff, that's how I did it. In other words, I took the time calc with the feds, the sales tables, etc., and put them together, merge, join them, etc. And you save a lot of time that way, doing it, the aggregations that way. SSIS is great. It's far more superior than using T-SQL. Okay? All right, I've bored you enough. The takeaways. Query performance, basically speaking, affects the user acceptance of the system. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And when a query times out, it infuriates the user. Okay. Management views help and should be used. Now, you can all say that you know the management views. Aside for the DBAs, how many people use at least one management view a week?
I use them all the time.
Yeah. All right, okay. Are you a DBA?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's it,
Yeah.
okay? But for us people who are developers, who are not the message I'm trying to get across, I'm not advocating going out and memorizing every single one because you can't. But when you have to Google what's the best way to da-da-da-da-da, and you come up with a DMB, use it. And there's lots of good code out there that you can go and cop. All right? When testing, make sure that your cache is clear. We often tend to forget that. Okay? And I do what is it, DBCC,
SQL perf,
3P session cache, or whatever it may be, every single time when I'm testing. It helps eliminate some of the whoopsies afterwards when you go and change the parameters. All right? Recommendations that you get from the indices things are just guides. Don't take them for the gospel. Right? If you intend here, this is what I was trying to get at in the presentation. If you intend to add indices, ensure that they'll benefit from them, because you can get indice overkill. Okay? How many people have put too many indices on there and you find out that it actually worsens things?
It'll kill you.
I have. It'll kill you.
Yeah, on inserts and
It'll
updates
kill you.
in particular. Yeah.
It'll kill you, because I've done it. Okay? So that's something else. You want to be careful on that one. SSIS can help you, especially when it comes to complicated loads. It may be worthwhile doing, while placing some of the data in tables. All right? Now, where am I going with this one? Okay? A lot of people tend to put things into intermediate tables because putting it into temporary tables is usually efficient. And it's effective. It's doing the right thing and it's efficient. Okay? However, is it always that way? Sometimes it does pay to use tables as temporary staging tables to be able to move on to your next step. What do I mean? I'll give you an example. What is the problem with aggregations and our friend TempDB? None. Who said none?
Too many. You need memory.
Well, it's not only memory. What happens with TempDB?
It gets used.
It gets used. Right, it gets used. How do you free TempDB or shrink it?
Kill the session?
Well, you don't kill the session. What do you kill? You reset the server. Yeah, that's a problem. How many people have time during the day to go and restart the server?
It's usually not acceptable anyway.
I know. Okay, I agree with you. Okay, therefore, sometimes it's better to do something. It's sometimes better to go and do things. How am I running on time? I gotta finish up. Okay, right. Okay, all I'm saying is sometimes it's better to go through things in memory because the memory is released after the session. Okay, TempDB is not. And the problem is, where am I going with this? Aggregations tend to build up data in TempDB. I'm in. It's fact. So be very careful on that one, because I'll tell you what.
The other thing with that is,
yeah,
if it's a large data set and it's going to TempDB, it's running it to disk, which just slows you down.
Absolutely.
That's
absolutely.
the gist of it.
I've learned it.
Yeah.
I wish you were around a couple of years before.
So you're able to fit your temporary table in memory?
Look, I would basically speaking use the memory, yes, especially, bear with me, because if you've got a certain amount of allocation to the server of memory, that's fine, great, why not?
How are you
Because that memory is being freed up. If you do it in steps, You understand that memory is being freed up. Yes, carry on.
Sorry,
Shoot me down.
Are you recommending using memory instead of this?
Well, it depends upon what you're doing. I mean, I'm not trying to be two-handed. I mean, you know, they used to say about geologists, which I am, you know, you tie one hand on one hand, it could be this, on the other hand, it's that. Tie one hand behind the back. I'm just saying that if it comes to a choice between using memory and having the memory and having the memory and having the memory, I emphasize on this thing, and filling up TempDB and having TempDB crash, hey, I'm going to use memory. I'm not going to have you as the DBA are coming to me on the phone and saying, I brought the system down.
I didn't get how you plan to do it. Were you saying if you use SSIS, it uses memory?
No, in SSIS, hang on, in SSIS, if you're going to use SSIS, okay, it's going to use a certain amount of memory as opposed to using the whole thing in TempDB. That's a fact. That's a fact.
Keep it out of SQL Server.
Keep it out of SQL Server.
Space in the program.
Yes, that's right. Yes, yeah, the memory space of the program. Yeah, absolutely. Right, but keep it out of SQL Server, because I don't want the DBA calling me, telling me I'm bringing things down. No way.
Table variables, right.
There's so many ways of doing it. All I'm just saying is watch TempDB.
If it's a big data set, if you're doing it in a SQL Server, table variable, anything, it's going to write to disk, and that's
it.
It can be painful.
Yeah, very
I
painful.
always thought the temporary tables are created actually on the disk, and the variables, table variables are in memory.
Yes, but what about a table variable?
It's in memory.
Yes, and memory's faster,
I've
isn't
seen
it?
it where I
Logic
use
gets swapped out.
I've
Yeah.
seen it where I use a table variable
Yes.
and an actual temp table.
Yeah.
The temp table is a lot faster. It's actually written on.
Yes. Okay, but it's a memory table. Sorry, it's a temp table, and the temp table's in memory as opposed to TempDB, which is a physical database. Database.
That doesn't physical.
Right, and then when it gets full, that's writing to disk. And when it gets full, and you know about it.
There's a limit on it.
Absolutely. Okay? Watch the size of TempDB. Okay? And a monitoring tool will be a great badge for the tool that you've got. Okay? Sorry, are you talking next? Apologize. Okay? Look, at the end of the day, it basically boils down to a matter of dollars and cents. You know, to be very honest with you, you know, and getting things right the first time around. Okay? Which leads us to ask the question, why are our servers running so slowly? Thank you so very much for sitting through